Good morning. I watched episode 7 of The Acolyte last night and it was bad. Like, I watched episode 6 and I thought, yeah, it's bad, but I'm like, this is just par for the course for Disney plus Star Wars. And then I watched this latest episode and yeah, I'm seeing why this show is bad. Oh, I can't believe that this show cost like $180 million, by the way, because it does not exactly show in the production value. A lot of it looked really, really cheap. Not so much, I think, on the ship and all of that. It was just like the part when they were like riding speeders on this show really looked really, really cheap. And so like that's just something I want to get out of the way. Like they need to stop overblowing their budgets on these films and stuff like that. Anyway, I watched the episode, and the reason I watched it is I wanted to see more of that OSHA Kmar, whatever his name is, thirst trap. Like, where are we going to go with the thirst trap? They were not in this episode at all, at least not the adult versions of them that we were following. No, because this is a flashback episode. And Disney has done this before. They did it with WandaVision. Then it seemed a little bit more necessary. They did it with Moon Knight. It's like a pattern for a lot of their shows where they'll have this big buildup, and then an entire episode needs to be dedicated to a flashback to explain everything. So we've seen it with more than one Disney Plus show. I think this is the third one, but probably this is the third one. But even with She-Hulk, that's what they originally intended to do with that show. And I'm like, I don't get why you're going for that structure constantly when you have all this build up and then important information needs to be revealed at the end. You've done it like many times at this point. So anyway, this episode is entirely a flashback, and it is a flashback to everyone's favorite episode, episode 3, with the space witches. And yes, we are back to the space witches. So the episode opens up with the Jedi sitting around a campfire, and the Padawan Torben, I think his name is Torben. Forgive me if I mix up people's names, but anyway, it's this really long meandering scene where he's just complaining about how he wants to go home, which will come into play later. He just wants to go home, and they just kind of pause and talk and draw out the scene a long, long, long time, and it's really, really boring about why they have to be in here because it's a virgins and all that kind of stuff. And it's like you're just drawing out time. This is another aspect of Disney Plus shows that they will lengthen conversations even longer than they need to be through making pauses and all that kind of stuff, just so that they have more runtime because they need to fit it in for the Disney Plus slot. Anyway, so then after we finally get through that scene, and let me tell you, I felt every minute of this episode's runtime. It is so boring overall. But anyway, we have the character Soul, who this is the only actor I really like in the show. He runs off and he goes and he finds the witches' coven, essentially, and he finds them through seeing May and Osha as children. But here's the funny part. He follows them and he sees like 2 seconds of May and Osha's life. He sees their mother chastising them to come in, and they sees their other mother pushing them with the force and telling them, good job. He sees like 2 seconds of their lives, and he immediately makes a judgment and goes all child protective services and says, we need to take them out of this situation because this is a bad situation. Now, this is going to be important with the episode because I cannot tell if they want me to hate the witches or like the witches or feel sympathetic to the witches at all, because on the one hand, we do see them abusing their children, which should be something to make us absolutely hate them. On the other hand, we see them like being portrayed as the sympathetic ones. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself though. So obviously, the Jedi Master Soul takes a liking to Osha in particular and really wants to take her back to be a Jedi as she wants. And but of course, then we get this conflict with their mothers not wanting her to go. And we get to see what essentially happened in episode 3 from the Jedi's perspective. But then it just becomes a bit unserious. Like because the explanation they have for what really happened is basically a series of unfortunate events. First of all, we have to get it out of the way that the mothers of Osha and May, these two mothers, I don't understand why they're together, because one of them is kind of a witch and she kind of does some messed up stuff in the episode. like when she takes over Torben's mind, and I'm like, where are you going with this? She seems outright evil. But then the next minute, we're meant to believe that she is this completely loving mother who just loves these children, and that she is the empathetic one. That makes no sense. Then her wife, I suppose, is just this total psychopath throughout the entire thing, and she herself causes a lot of problems because May is furious at Osha, like furious like I've never seen before at her sister wanting to be a Jedi. She wants to disown her. She, as we saw in episode 3, wants her to be killed, or she threatens to kill her. And her mother, the woman with the horns, starts to attack May to make her angry, to get her to stop Osha. And it's like, okay, you know, it was a little ridiculous to have Soul make a judgment on these people from just 2 seconds, but it's like this, it literally is an abusive woman. And so May locks Osha in the thing, the cabinet, whatever it is, of course. And then it's explained that May is trying to burn the book, burn a book or something, and she sets fire to everything. But it doesn't make sense because they show her setting fire to stone. I don't know how that works. And then May goes to get her mother. This is a series of unfortunate events. Unfortunately, as May was trying to burn a book, she set the rocks on fire, however that works. And unfortunately, out in front, the 2 lesbian witches were arguing with the Jedi, who and it seemed like there was going to be a violent altercation. The Jedi just came to talk. It seemed that there was going to be a violent altercation with the witches, especially because that psychopath character who with the white face and the horns, the wife of the main woman, she acts like a psychopath constantly. She acts like there's going to be a violent altercation between these characters. So because of that, it seems like the other mother, the main one, seems like she's about to get violent and she's about to do something weird. So she blows herself up in like this liquid form. She freaks the Jedi out, and so Soul swings and kills the mother character, and she says that I was going to let Osha go with you all along, and it's like, but it didn't sound like that. It sounded like you were about to attack everyone with how you were talking and how your wife is acting. So unfortunately, Soul kills the mother because of a misunderstanding. And unfortunately, May chooses that moment to run out and set to warn everybody about the fire that she started, and she sees her mother being killed by this Jedi. So that's explained. And then it gets funny when you talk about it, but so then you have the psychopath wife that they have to deal with, that they fight, who I guess it's implied that she manipulates the Wookiee Jedi to fight them, but then there's this very, very awkward edit where the Wookiee Jedi who has been taken over by the witches is fighting the main Jedi, but then we keep cutting back and forth to like the witches, that like the rest of them, apparently they went down into the basement and are just rocking back and forth, controlling this guy. And it reminded me of a scene from Labyrinth that was equally crazy, where you would cut back from the main world to the Goblin world, which hadn't even been introduced yet. But anyway, it's really strange. And so there's this huge fight with the witches and the Jedi, and the fight was probably the only time that I was even the least bit invested or entertained in the show at all, but it ends very abruptly by one of the female Jedi friends coming back and basically using the Force to break the control of the witches. And I'm like, do you want me to believe that these witches are these all-powerful characters who know the Force better than anybody else, or do you want me to believe that they can so easily be broken, even an entire army of them? So that's that. And then another unfortunate event happens, unfortunately. Soul goes to find Osha and May, and he finds them across the bridge, and the bridge is about to break, and he's conveniently at a place where he can see both bridges of them across each other trying to break. But he holds the bridges up, and for some reason he doesn't use the Force to bring both children over to him. He uses the Force to try to hold up these incredibly strong bridges that are about to fall. And eventually he can't handle it, and so he lets May fall and he rescues Osha. So unfortunately, he let a child die because he was being stupid. That's what happened right then. If he had just used the Force to capture both children, then they would have been fine. And then it explains that this was an unfortunate event that the Jedi wanted to cover up, and so that's why they created the lie that May started the fire that set their entire stone castle on fire, because as we see in the episode, like, that's essentially what destroys everyone. Like, the fire blows things up in this stone castle and they all die. And so the Jedi create a lie that May started a fire that killed everyone, and that's how the episode ends. So I have some questions. First of all, I don't know whose side I'm supposed to be on in this, because clearly the witches were messed up. Clearly the way that they were treating the children was messed up. Clearly the one witch wife who had the horns was just a total psychopath entirely. And I don't know about the main woman who's the mother. I don't know if I'm supposed to sympathize with her or like her. The show wants me to sympathize her by the end, because she was going to let Osha go. Maybe she was just too hard as a mother, you know. She was really the good person all along. But I'm like, but you are the ones who made it seem like you were about to have a violent altercation with the Jedi before you walked it back and were like, oh no, I was going to let her go with you. That's not what it seemed like. So it was... I think that the point of the episode is supposed to be about how imperfect the Jedi are, and yes, that they have done horrible things in the past. It's sort of like the theme that The Last Jedi was going for, and there's a lot of parallels from The Last Jedi in this, that no, these people who you idolize, they're not actual heroes. They've done some awful things, but that's kind of what the prequels already got into in a better way, that they were not perfect. But it's like, but the witches weren't the good guys either in this. So, I mean, I think what's going to be like the ultimate theme at the end of this show, if I were to guess from interviews that have been said, is that, like, there's no good and evil, like everything is ambiguous, everything is gray.
Best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil. It depends on what side you're standing on, truly.
I'm assuming that that's where they're going with this, but that's not exactly what Star Wars is supposed to be about.
Conflict between good and evil is the basic conflict. The universal question is, am I a good person? Through mythology and things, we're taught certain things that are good and certain things that are bad. But a thinking person questions all that and say, is this really good?
And you're winding up so that I don't have any likable characters, because I most certainly don't like the witches. And then I want to like Soul, because he was the only character I was interested in. But the episode is telling me, no, these people are people who have done terrible things. They've done terrible mistakes. They let the unfortunate events happen. And so I'm just not on board with that. But the Acolyte, I didn't think that episode 6 was anything worse than I'd seen in Star Wars, apart from the weird shipping stuff. This is just terrible. It's like written by people who not only do not understand the Star Wars lore, but it's like they didn't properly revise their episodes. They didn't really think about what they're writing, because none of it makes any sense. And it's not really dramatically satisfying when you just have a series of clownish misunderstandings and unfortunate events happen, and that is supposed to be the big drama and heartbreak of the episode. Oh, accidentally she set a book on fire, and oh, oops, he killed somebody. Oops, she walked out and saw it. Oops, he dropped one of the children. That just does not make a very great show. I hope that maybe the Acolyte is the last of these kinds of Disney Plus Star Wars shows, because I think that at this point everyone is just so fed up with it and they're not accepting this anymore. It is just so ridiculous. I think that the lesbian space witches thing was the worst idea that they could have come up with. Do they want me to like these characters? Do they want me to hold these witches in high regard and think that they were just a great people who were massacred? I don't know. I don't know. There's just nobody to really root for in this show whatsoever. But that is all I got for my review for The Acolyte episode 7. Thank goodness there is only one more episode of this show. Are you watching The Acolyte? I bet you're not. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. What do you think about what theme they might be going for with this show, about how there is no good and evil and all of that stuff? Once again, let me know in the comments below. Thank you, patrons, as always, and I will see you guys next time.